Good morning. Welcome to Subramani. This is going to be a slightly longish video, I presume, and this is not something very original. I've taken from lot of past masters, including Buffett and Munger and Siegel and Markowitz, John Bogle, right? All of them. Apart from good Indian investors like Narain and Prashant Jain and Srinivasan of PGIM and all those people, a lot of idea. E.A. Sundaram, ex-HDFC, for those whose memory goes long back, and ex-PGIM. A lot of these people have contributed to this. I would think Amit Trivedi and Suraj Kelly and all those people. A lot of people whose names you may have heard, seen, Sham Shekhar. Right, you may have heard and met some of them, you may have read many of them, right? So I'm going to answer a question: what is a perfect portfolio? So let me start with the caveat that there is nothing called a perfect portfolio. The question to ask is, which is the best possible portfolio for you at this point in time? So the answer is very simple: as long as it lets you sleep peacefully and wake up very well and eat well, that is good enough. You don't need anything more than that. As long as you have food on the table, roof over your head, water to drink, and connectivity, I don't think you should be worried too much about is your neighbor getting better return, right? That is one of the worst things. This is again from Buffett saying, look at your internal scorecard, don't look at the external scorecard. Like, for example, I can always tell you, you must have a very good house because that is your way to prove that you're successful. But prove to whom? Why should you prove? Why can't you live in a house which does not look like a museum, right? I know people who live in houses which look like museum, perfectly, things in place. Come to my room, it's a mess, right? So a perfect portfolio is something which is very difficult to design, and it depends, only you can do it yourself, because the best of advisors will fail because they don't know how your perception about risk is changing on a minute to minute basis, and it does change, right? So you have to look at, is this portfolio appropriate for me, and what can I learn from the masters? I think the most important thing you can learn from the masters is make your own philosophy statement. See what suits you, not what suits me, not what suits Jeremy Siegel or Safal Niveshak, right? It doesn't matter what suits. You have to see what suits you. You can take from various sources and then design your own portfolio, right? So largely you say, let us look at what each of those great individuals have said. For example, Warren Buffett doesn't talk much about investing abroad, but John Templeton made his money by investing in Japan. So there is a difference between John Templeton and Warren Buffett. So if John Templeton had checked out Warren Buffett's portfolio, he may have suggested some changes. If Rakesh Jhunjhunwala looks at Niranjan Hiranandani's portfolio, he would suggest dramatic changes, right? And if Niranjan Hiranandani were to look at Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's portfolio, he would be aghast, saying, oh, he's got very little real estate. So there is no right or wrong. The question is what suits you. And there are a few big guys. I think Jeremy Siegel is of the view that you need to have only debt and equity. You don't need anything else. There are others who would say, no, you have more asset classes, so you should have some gold, you should have some real estate, you should of course have bond and equities. Up to you, right? So first is go and sit and draft your own investment philosophy statement, drawing from all these people. Perfectly possible to copy. Like this episode, this vlog is a copy, right? I am taking from so many people and I'm going to quote, which means I'm going to read. So find out what is remember, I'm picking up from almost all Nobel Prize winners. Markowitz is a Nobel Prize winner. I don't think Jeremy Siegel has got a Nobel Prize, but yes, these are all Nobel Prize winners. So Markowitz created a theory which gave him the, the theory which Markowitz created is the PMT, or the what we call as the perfect portfolio for Markowitz was very different from the perfect portfolio of, say, Schiller or from Jeremy Siegel. So we'll come to, let me come one by one. none of them agree on what is an ideal portfolio. So let us go by saying the perfect portfolio. Like for example, MPT is what he created, right? Modern portfolio theory. Yes, this is what Markowitz created. So that's what I wanted to get at. It's saying Markowitz created MPT, modern portfolio theory, where he said, and he got a Nobel Prize for doing it. And what in his head is a perfect portfolio is mathematical diversification matters. So you should be having a perfect amount of money in debt and equity, which is ideal to you at that point in time, and then you should keep doing asset allocation, right? So for him, creating a perfect portfolio, for example, buying maybe a share of Indigo and vaccine manufacturer would be a good way to do it, because if the virus spreads, the vaccine manufacturer would make money, and if the virus goes away, then Indigo will make more money. So that's he wanted correlation in the portfolio and correlation within the equity portfolio and the overall thing. Not everybody is so much worried about that correlation so much. But Markowitz himself later on in his life said, oh, it's too much of a pain, so let me have half or things like that, right? So this will happen. People who create theories also somewhere give it away, give it up when it is too complicated to do. I keep saying this, perfect diagnosis, perfect prescription, but if the implementation is difficult or poor, then the result is not achieved. If the client does not take adequate action at the right time, or if he panics at the wrong time, that could be a problem. Now, Schiller, on the other hand, says more about active investing, and he says you have to constantly keep looking for good investments. So Markowitz is happy with going into a mutual fund, but Schiller says you should put more money into companies which are very innovative. For example, today, he might ask you to invest money in, say, Tata Elxsi, Tata Motors, TCS, etc. I'm just picking up the Tata group, saying, oh, the electric vehicle is going to be launched in Tata Power, because that is where you will get your charging stations, right? So he might say that's a good innovative way of investing, but Markowitz may not. Markowitz may say there is no correlation. I mean, I don't want a correlation between two companies. So creating a portfolio with the Markowitz idea and Schiller's idea could be very different. But remember, both have very good theories, and both are capable of winning the Nobel Prize, right? They both have won the Nobel Prize. So you then decide how much you want to listen to Markowitz and how much you want to listen to Schiller, because you have to receive everybody's idea and create your own portfolio. Schiller is the person who said government should come out with their own, Government of India equity. So if it is listed, when India does well, that will go up, and when India does badly, it will go down. Maybe ahead of its times, maybe in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, some such product will come, which will be created by the government, which means there will be no leverage, but there will be a product like this, and that could be great, right? So when it goes up, the government knows that the people are liking it, and when it goes down, government will know people are not liking it. So it's a very great indicator of combining markets and government and telling the government a feedback on a minute-to-minute basis. Yes, it could have irrational exuberance from time to time, but over a long period, it will track public opinion on government action very well. I think it's a great product, but who is going to design it? How is it going to happen? I have no idea. But this is, I think, Schiller's idea, and Schiller said that this should be done. Schiller is again the person who works a lot with equity, and he again does not believe that you need any real estate in your portfolio. And he believes that if you spot adequate growth opportunities, you will make money. But which means he's slightly different from the Buffett and the Fisher kind of stance of value investing. It's not to say that value investing is not part of Schiller, but the way he designs the portfolio is more oriented towards growth, right? But one thing which Schiller says is go and get a good financial advisor, because Schiller is the person who has pointed out portfolio mistakes in very many portfolios. So he believes that you need a financial advisor to make sure that you don't make behavioral mistakes. You can learn all that you have to learn, but you could make behavioral mistakes based on some fear, some irrationality, something which you saw in childhood, something which impacted you, or with increasing age. I think Ken Fisher says about Phil Fisher, saying beyond the age of 70, he was not a great investor, right? So you need to take that. So if you're 70 or 80, you have to find out whether your age is impacting your investing. So that's also part of your portfolio creation. So he says having a good financial advisor is a very good reality check on what you're doing. John Bogle, on the other hand, said you have to put all your money in an index and just sleep and sit tight. Now this is great advice, but remember, when you're putting in from the US, when you're putting in an index, 50% of your money is going into US. From India, if you put into a world index, only 3% is going into the Indian market. Are you happy with that kind of an allocation? Otherwise, you have to put money in international index and in the Indian index. Now, if you believe in indexing, you have to believe it completely. Why would you believe it partially and say, no, I will put in an Indian index? That's not right. Then you have to put in the world index. Then you get into whether world index is fair, whether it right. So you get into all that. So be careful about what you're doing. But John Bogle largely believed Vanguard is good proof that you should just be in an index fund. That's also fine, but Shiller says you should buy assets, right? Bogle argued that you don't need any other asset class, just an equity fund and a debt fund, both index funds. You don't need active management. And he said it will get you far enough that you don't have to worry about other assets like metals and real estate, etc. But again, it's your call. Somebody will tell you you should buy real estate to show off to the world that you have arrived, or buy a big car to show to the world that you have arrived, right? And also John, I think all of them are US centric, so they would talk about social security and things like that, which may not be very relevant for us, which means if you're trying to create a retirement portfolio, you have to be worried about volatility also. You have to be worried that you cannot draw down during bad times from equity. So creating those buckets. Now, bucket is not a theory which anybody said, but then it is a very useful way to useful way to keep your money. So if you keep your money in buckets, regular rebalancing may not be necessary, but during a bull market, you might remove some money from bucket number 3, which could be equity, and put it into bucket number 1, which could be debt and less volatile assets. So you could be doing that, right? So only he talks about that. Even John Bogle doesn't talk so much about asset allocation. Again, some conflict of interest between these speakers also. Lot of momentum investing is happening, which very few people have really spoken about it. None of these people have said you should leverage and create your portfolio. So for those people who believe in F&O, etc., these are some 7-8 people whose books from where I have drawn this and from websites. I don't see anybody saying that you should borrow and build your portfolio. Again, should you be in international funds? Well, 50% of your money is in US, and then therefore you should be in international funds. But if 100% of your money is in the market, which is 3% of world market, that's a very strong argument for being in international funds. I saw Vidya Bala had done an article a few days ago about investing in international funds, and there I saw a list of amazing long list of international funds, which could be a DSP World Mining Fund, some agriculture fund, or a global asset allocator, which 2-3 people have, which will decide how much to put in the US, how much to put in Europe, and how much to put in Asia, right? So these are all portfolios, are also indicators on how to create your own portfolio. That is what fund managers do. Then there is again the conflict between value and growth, right? So if you go to pharma, and Kenneth French, and they have had this huge pharma won the Nobel Prize, but largely growth versus value. Over long periods of time, you will realize that value will do well, but value can do badly for 15 years. For 10 years, it is possible that large cap is outperforming small cap, but small cap in 3 years can do a full catch up, or in 1 year can do a full catch up. And the CAGR on small cap may look better than the CAGR on large cap, but the large cap portfolio would have helped you sleep better, right? The standard deviation of the small cap would be very high, could be very high. I'm not saying it is always very high. Like last 10 years, return in the US has been excellent on equity markets, We do not know how the next 10 years is going to be. So allocating some money to US, yes, it makes sense, but how much depends on your current situation, right? So almost all of them are telling you that IPOs are overpriced, stay away from that, don't leverage, right? See, these are things which many of us, like Shyam Shekhar keeps saying why he does not invest in an IPO. I have done a video in Hindi on why I don't invest in an IPO. So it's possible, but it is also possible that people who invest in IPOs and make money, and they are going to say, "Arey, look, it doesn't matter what these guys say. I put money in IPO, I have made money." So that is also true, right? So both are facts. The fact is, Shyam Shekhar doesn't put money in IPOs. I don't put money in IPOs. We have made money in the secondary market, but there are many people who have made money by investing in IPOs. So you will have to understand and handle all these conflicts while creating your own portfolio. So there is somebody who will say, don't invest in commodities because commodity prices fluctuate wildly. Somebody else could say, look, you are missing out the commodity thing. Why don't you invest in a commodity fund where the fund manager will decide in which commodity he should be for the next quarter or 2 months or 6 months, and you can get the benefit of commodity without having to understand how the commodity market works. And as long as it gives you real return, you shouldn't bother too much, right? So again, not paying attention to taxes is something which bugs me, and that is another reason why many people lose money. Should you have your own equity portfolio? Should you put it in mutual funds? Experts are divided on all this. So I'm just saying, read all this. You've got good websites and good books to read. Based on all this, make up your mind. Don't get carried away by any single advisor, not yours truly, not nobody, right? The only thing which I'm trying to tell you is there is a lot of conflict of interest. Be careful, make up your mind, use your brain, use your money. Thank you.